Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host Bill DeFilippo, joined tonight by my co-host Nick Pollock. Nick, what's going on?
Nothing. I'm currently in the process of participating in the Mariners' 50th season is next year, and they have a vote for like their top 50 players, bunch of stuff like that. And I am already so frustrated at the number of votes that are going to pour in and vote players into that list that have been on the team for like 2 seasons, when the Mariners very famously have an extremely like deep history of really good baseball players despite their lack of success. So that's where I'm at.
It's very obvious who you are saying is the greatest Mariner of all time, right?
Well, yeah, of course, it's Luis Sojo.
Wow. Okay, that's deep disrespect to Ken Griffey Jr. But if you want to be the one who disrespects Ken Griffey Jr., Nick Pollock,
I mean, in reality,
Ken Griffey Jr.
in reality,
are you gonna say Felix?
No, I mean, if you really want to talk like, if you really want to put him up there, like you could very easily make an argument that A-Rod is a better overall player.
Wow.
If you wanted to.
What about better Mariner? That's the important thing. It's not who's the better player, it was who was the better Seattle Mariner.
I mean, again, like
wow,
go back and look.
Okay.
Griffey has the longevity. Don't get me wrong, but if you go back and look at what A-Rod did as a Seattle Mariner, whew.
And then as a member of the New York Yankees, he won a World Series. Anyway, let's get to talking about why. Let's get to talking about why you're all here today. Penn State plays yet another football game this weekend. I can't believe they are continuing to put the Nittany Lions on television, but the Nittany Lions are going to be on television on Saturday night, playing host to the Nebraska Cornhuskers on NBC in Beaver Stadium. Nick, I know you pay attention to this stuff, so there's a pretty good chance you know what the answer to this question is. Do you know what the spread is in this game?
I believe it's Penn State by 10.5?
9.5.
9.5. Okay.
Penn State are, I don't know if there's a single thing that better sums up how weird this Penn State season has been than the fact that they are 4-6, Nebraska is 7-3, and Penn State are 9.5-point favorites to win this game on Saturday night.
That and the ESPN continually releasing these FPI polls where Penn State's like 16th or something like that. They just keep tossing a lot of gasoline on that fire. It's very funny.
It really does go to speak how, like, I think every sports fan just really enjoys going like, oh, woe is me. I'm cursed. I'm suffering. Everything's bad for me. It really does go to show how cursed Penn State has been this year. That, like, SP Plus has them as the 19th best team in the country. ESPN's FBI has them as the 20th best team in the country. And there is always one team that is like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Penn State.
It's usually Auburn.
Auburn is liked by the computers as well. Yes. Penn State is a top 20 team in the country at a 4-6 record. I mean, if the fact that James Franklin got introduced as the head coach of Virginia Tech today does not show how weird everything about this season is, I think that shows it. Like, there is a good football team in here, and yet, Penn State is sitting at 4-6, needs this game against Nebraska to move one final step away from achieving bowl eligibility. And I will say, Nick, the fact it's coming off of a win, Penn State finally snapping its 6-game losing streak, makes me feel like pretty good about this one, all things considered.
Yeah, and it's from a certain lens, you could easily play it off as, oh, well, they're playing Michigan State. But it was encouraging that all the things they did well against Indiana were the things that they continued to do well against Michigan State. Like, there's very clear signs of improvement. Which, as a side note, I would pay $10,000 to have audio recordings of every conversation between Terry Smith and Andy Kotelnicki. But it's very it's encouraging the way that they've stepped their game up and the way that they've found ways to win despite not having a lot of guys that were key to not having some guys that were key to start the year, despite obvious deficiencies that they do have, despite being a headless chicken, so to speak, without James Franklin. Terry Smith has done a really nice job as an interim coach, I would say. But that's a lot to overcome. And the fact that they were able to be one miraculous catch away from beating the number 2 team in the country. But the way they're able to do that, come off that emotional roller coaster, and then come back and put together what was a really nice football game against Michigan State. I don't like 9.5 points is it's a lot, but it's not crazy based on how these two teams have been playing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Penn State, it's a thing we've mentioned on the pod before. 6 points against Oregon, 5 points against UCLA, 1 against Northwestern, 1 against Iowa, 3 against Indiana. They've been right there all year. And sure, they haven't played like a national title contender, but it's not like they've played like abjectly horrible football. And as a result, they're now going into a game against the Nebraska team that, about a month ago, Nebraska had some very sneaky, you look at their schedule, could they maybe sneak into the back end of the playoff? Last 4 games haven't gone especially great from them. Losses to Minnesota and USC. The USC loss was a competitive loss at home at night. Wins over Northwestern and UCLA, something that we can't say about Penn State. And over kind of the big thing hanging over the program, Nick, was that this game was shaping up to be the ultimate job interview for Matt Rhule. And that has now been taken off the table. So, still a very interesting football game. Nebraska is going to be rolling into this with their backup quarterback after Dylan Ariola, I believe, suffered. It was a collarbone injury, I think, that is going to hold him out for broken fibula. Apologies. Going to hold him out for the remainder of the season. But the big intrigue over this game was going to be what kind of job interview can Matt Rhule do at his alma mater? That's now off the table, and now we can just focus on the football game.
Yeah, thankfully. I don't think it's any secret that you and I were not particularly enthused by the idea of Matt Rhule being the next head football coach at Penn State. And I should note, obviously nothing's impossible. It's if Penn State really decides they want Matt Rhule, I'm sure they'll pay the buy and make it happen. But it seems not likely at the moment. So, it would have been, a morbidly fascinating dynamic, I guess, if that had been what was going on. To think that if you're Matt Rhule in that situation, if you win the game, you're positioning Nebraska just to be one step better in the postseason and so on. But if you lose it, so it makes it harder than to leave Nebraska. But if you had lost to Penn State, the Penn State's not going to want you. So it's weird. It would have been a really entertaining thing to watch play out. But it's going to be an interesting football game. I don't know how good of a football game it's going to be, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a fair read on it. But I think the big thing that I will say is that if Penn State lost last week, or if Penn State won and won in such a way that it was just they ran the world's slowest race slightly faster than Michigan State did.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be especially excited for this game. But I don't know. I think last week we saw a team that is still showing a lot of heart, still showing a lot of fight, wants to end this season well. And, the final home game for you go through the roster, guys.
A lot of guys.
Yeah. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Nick Dawkins, Khalil Dinkins, Denai Dennis-Sutton, Zane Durant, Dom DeLuca. It's Zaki Wheatley. It's a lot of guys who have given a lot to the program. I cannot fathom a world where we are going to see Penn State go out there on Saturday and do anything other than throw the best haymaker that they have. And I think if they do that, they should be able to win this football game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we've talked about this a lot. This is there's still a ton of talent on this Penn State roster, and we've finally started to see it kind of reemerge these last 2 weeks. They are a more talented football team than Nebraska. They can their best outcome is better than Nebraska's best outcome, especially without Dylan Raiola. So I mean, while the 9.5 line is a lot, while there's emotions are going to be high on the Penn State side, like you said, it's going to be senior day. There's going to be a lot of extra stuff in the air, but they are point blank. They are and should be a better football team than Nebraska, and I think that is probably going to show itself. I expect good things. I expect the improvements that we've seen the last couple of weeks to continue to carry over in this one. So I'm excited. There's a lot of cool things that can happen on Saturday. We'll get there should be a really nice chance for Katron Allen to become Penn State's all-time leading rusher on Saturday. There is at least an outside chance of Nick Singleton becoming the program's all-time touchdown leader. Like, there's a lot of really cool things that can happen in this game. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that makes two of us. And I'm just noting this. I don't think this is going to happen. Penn State's usually good for one, just like emphatic ass whooping in Big Ten play a year. And we haven't gotten that yet. So it'd be very nice to be able to wrap the regular season up at Beaver Stadium with Penn State just kind of going out there and taking a lot of frustration out on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about the game, Penn State on offense, Penn State on defense, and a few other things. But Nick, I got to ask, how much stuff do you have in your wardrobe from our friends at Home Field Apparel?
I have, I think, 4 t-shirts, a sweatshirt, 2 long sleeve shirts, and I don't have a pair of joggers currently. I do have one on my Christmas list for this year.
There you go. I would recommend a lot of people try and follow Nick's lead and put things from Home Field Apparel on their Christmas lists as we get into the holiday season this year. Home Field Apparel, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know the deal. They've been our podcast sponsor since we decided to go sponsor a podcast only, and they've been nothing but fantastic. Nick is not the only person I know whose closet is just full of stuff from Home Field Apparel. Mine is full of stuff from Home Field Apparel. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a decent chance that yours is full of Home Field Apparel. And if it's not, what are you waiting for? Head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Check out everything that they have in their collection, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a hoodie, whether it's a jogger, whether it's any kind of jacket that they have, whether it's a hat that they have for yourself, for the Penn State fan in your life, or for just the college athletics fan in your life. They have a ton of schools in their collection. Some of the stuff they have in the non-Penn State collections are really exceptional. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Check out everything they have. Maybe you'll find something you like, or maybe you'll find something that somebody else will like for the holidays. Homefieldapparel.com will have something for you. Let's get back to talking about Penn State and Nebraska. Starting with Penn State on the offensive side of the football. And Nick, may I read you some stats that I think will be very telling in how Penn State is going to approach this football game?
Please do.
Okay. Nebraska's allows 5.1 yards per play, which is tied for 36. But before we do that, let's back this up. Do you know who Nebraska's defensive coordinator is?
I believe it is one Mr. John Butler.
That is correct. Former Penn State defensive coordinator John Butler. I believe he is in his first year at Nebraska. Let me just double check. Yep. He was their secondary and defensive pass game coordinator last year. He's their defensive coordinator and secondary coach this year. Butler, of course, was Penn State's defensive backs coach and defensive coordinator during the Bill O'Brien years here in State College. When you hear secondary coach, you assume they have a very good secondary, and that is true. Nebraska is allowing 5.4 yards per attempt, which is third nationally, and 9.6 yards per catch, tied for second nationally, along with allowing opponents to complete 56.12% of their passes, which is 11th nationally. Their big Achilles heel, they're allowing about 5 yards a rush, which is tied for 112th nationally. And Nick, I imagine Andy Kotelnicki, who has spent a lot of this year
playing with crayons.
Very possible. Let's say he has been opposed to the idea of a passing game. I think Katron Allen, he got 25 carries of work last week. I expect him to get at least 25 carries of work this week as well. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see him go on to break Penn State's all-time rushing record this weekend.
Yeah, this crazy thing has happened the last 2 weeks where Penn State has allowed its quarterback to throw the ball more than 7 yards down the field. And shockingly, what that has done is it's forced secondaries to actually respect the fact that Penn State might throw the ball more than 7 yards down the field. And oh my goodness, all of a sudden that means there's not 10 defenders in the box every time. And oh my goodness, that means there's running lanes. Oh wow, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton actually do get a chance to run with the football in space. It's the kind of inspired ideas like that really show why Andy Kotelnicki is just a top-notch offensive coordinator candidate for any team this cycle looking to reinvent their offense. I know Penn State will be sad to lose him, but you know, a lot of teams are going to go all out to get a guy like this on their coaching staff. But in reality, yeah, it's the way that that Ethan Grunkemeyer has shown the ability to throw downfield has opened things up a lot in the run game. It's not a coincidence that last week was the most prolific game of the season for Katron Allen. I expect them to do enough of that downfield passing to keep that open again, despite Nebraska's proclivity for stopping the pass. I do think they have I assume they have learned the lesson at this point that at least trying that stuff down the field makes life a lot easier for the best player on their offense, who is Katron Allen.
Yeah, the weird thing with Nebraska this year is that they get after the quarterback a bit. They're registering sacks on 5.95% of dropbacks, which is 68th nationally. They don't really have one guy who gets after the quarterback. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 guys who have recorded at least one sack, and their top sack guy has recorded 2.5 sacks on the year. They have a very good linebacker in the middle of their defense, and Javen Wright, who is their main guy at just like cleaning things up, the Amari Campbell of their defense. Where they have really succeeded is they have a very active secondary. If I remember correctly, they don't really force a ton of turnovers. They've only had 6 interceptions on the year. But whether it's Sierra Wright, whether it's Deshaun Singleton, whether it's Donovan Jones, whether it's Andrew Marshall, they have a lot of guys in their secondary who can be very disruptive. I'm very interested to the point that you made, Nick. What does Penn State's passing game in this game look like? Because Nebraska has been quite good at shutting down opposing passing games. You look at the most dynamic passing offense that they've played this year was USC, and that was at night in Nebraska. But Jaden Mayava had an absolutely awful football game by his standards. Michigan State, they couldn't do anything through the air. Malik Washington put it up a ton, didn't get a ton out of that. But when you look at what USC had a little bit of success with, it was King Miller and Jaden Mayava running the football as a team. USC ran at 5.3 yards per carry. Maryland, their top rusher, Nolan Ray, at 5.6 yards per carry. Teams have been able to move the ball on the ground against Nebraska. I'm very interested in whether Nebraska, as a result, tries to sell out and maybe makes it a little bit easier for Penn State to throw the ball, knowing their receivers are, haven't been great this year, and they have a young quarterback stepping in to this game, and maybe you can afford to let them put the ball up a little bit more. But if not, coming off of last week's game against Michigan State, where the offensive line had its best game of the season, where Katron Allen had his best game of the season, where Nick Singleton, didn't have his best game of the season, got used in spots and showed a little bit of burst here and there. I'm very interested in whether Penn State tries to lean on its running game more, and if Nebraska is just going to be happy to let them do that. And if so, like, I see no reason not to run the football 40 plus times in this game.
Yeah, I do wonder if we see Nebraska stack the box a little bit, but with multiple intentions for that. One being to try to contain Allen and Singleton, but two, the biggest knock on Ethan Grunkmeyer so far, I would say, is his pocket presence. He just doesn't really have it yet, which is not surprising. Basically, every new quarterback goes through this. This is the first extended run he's ever gotten at the collegiate level, very different from high school, very different from practice. So he's still getting a sense for when he should be stepping up into pockets, when he does need to finally give up and bail. So I wonder if they also stack the box with the intention of throwing some interesting blitzes his way and just try to get his feet moving. Even if they don't necessarily get home early in the game, just give him one more thing to think about, some simulated pressures, all that good stuff. So I expect them to do a good amount of that, to basically say, listen, we're going to devote a couple extra resources to stopping the run. We're going to be okay putting our secondary on an island, but we're going to be a little more okay with that because we know we're going to throw some extra pressure. We're going to simulate some pressure. We're going to try to get him to make mistakes in that way. So I would expect there to be a lot of red shirts around the line of scrimmage in this game. I think that is most likely Nebraska's best path to victory here, is to take advantage of the fact that Ethan Grunkmeyer is still a young player, still learning how to navigate the pocket at this point.
Yeah, I think I think you made a really good point about Grunk and his big issue being his inability to just his feel in the pocket, his pocket presence, all of that. I am actually very interested in, I went to look at, is there any singular thread across the 3 games that Michigan has lost this season? Again, they lost, or not Michigan, Nebraska. They did lose to Michigan. That was one of the teams. That's why I mentioned them there. I promised that I wasn't doing a bit. Michigan, their top rusher, Justice Haynes, 17 carries, 149 yards, 8.8 yards per carry. Minnesota, their top rusher, Darius Taylor, 24, 148, 6.2. USC, King Miller, 18, 129, 7.2. You look at the passing outputs for each of those games. Bryce Underwood threw for 105 yards. Drake Lindsey threw for 153 yards. Jaden Mayava threw for 135 yards. I just don't see a world where Penn State is not trying to grind Minnesota, Nebraska to
anyone but Nebraska.
Anyone but Nebraska. That is correct. I just cannot see a world where they don't try to do that. Especially because, to move to the other side of the football, it's very difficult to talk about Nebraska and talk about Nebraska's offense for the simple reason that their starting quarterback is a true freshman who has started 1 game in his collegiate career. TJ Lateef stepped in, got a little bit of work before this, but stepped in place of Dylan Raiola. Absolutely torched.
Really good.
UCLA.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. A lot of his success was the fact that, love Katron Allen. This is not a knock on Katron Allen at all. In Emmett Johnson, Nebraska probably has the best running back in the Big Ten, a guy who is able to kill you on the ground and is super, super dynamic through the air. I would not be surprised, going back to what we just said about the offense, if they try and just keep Nebraska sideline on the field and do not let Lateef get into the rhythm, and then to move over to Penn State's defense against Nebraska's offense, I think the key is basically 2 things. One, to what extent can you slow down and bother and keep Emmett Johnson from having a monster game, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. He has eclipsed 124 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And at the same time, how are you able to pressure a young quarterback who has been cool, calm, collected, and composed I think that's by not letting him get into a rhythm, by having him spend as much time on the sideline as possible.
Yeah, I think for Penn State defensively, the story is pretty similar to what Nebraska needs to do. I think they need to get a lot of guys near the line, because Penn State's secondary has not been perfect this year, but they've been okay. Like they especially the last couple of weeks, they've played really well. I know Indiana, I know Fernando Mendoza did put up some points, but a lot of Indiana's production came on some really incredible play by their wide receivers. So I've been pretty impressed with the Penn State secondary. Guys like, freshman Darius Dixon has looked excellent so far. So they have guys stepping up in different ways. Zion Tracy seems to be back and healthy now. That's big for them. So I think that they should feel comfortable letting their secondary play a bit on islands, just like Nebraska should, because they know they have a backup or a freshman second string quarterback in there. But the other part of that is that Jim Knowles the last couple of weeks is really, and a little bit against Ohio State, a little bit too, has really started to find something with basically making this Penn State defense look a little bit more like it did last year, bringing back a little bit more of that Manny Diaz blitzing style. That's not really what we saw from Penn State in the early on, but it's worked really well the last month or so. So I expect to see them just try to get in the backfield and bother things and disrupt things in that way. But you're not going to stop Emmett Johnson completely. Like you said, he's been outstanding, especially the last 5 games, like you mentioned. Last game, like he rushed for 129 and went for 103 in the air. Like he was remarkable. He's a really good football player. I think if you're Penn State, your goal is basically just don't let him be better than 5 yards a carry. Just try to keep him around that number or less is the goal, which I think they can do. They let up the big, I think, 57-yard run early to Michigan State last week. But after that, they did a pretty decent job of putting the clamps on things from there. It's not like they shut them down per se, but they didn't let Michigan State dictate terms on the ground. I think they can do that in this game. Johnson is going to get his, but I don't think Johnson is going to beat Penn State on his own. So I think that the Penn State defense has really found something the last couple weeks. I think Jim Knowles has really found something with his personnel. Side note, I really do hope that Jim Knowles stays on board with the next head coach, because it'd be a shame to see all the work of this year finally start to pay off as it ends and then see him leave. But we'll see on that front. So I think the formula is pretty simple for both teams. I think it's get guys around the line of scrimmage and force the other team to beat you through the air, which is something that neither team has really shown that they either can, or neither team has really shown they can do with their backup quarterback, since they're both in the same spot in that regard.
Yeah, if you go back and watch the UCLA game, I think two of Latif's 3 touchdowns were just like crazy catcher. I think they were 2 crazy catch and runs by Johnson, but he had
2 receiving touchdowns. Yeah.
But he's been very, very good for them since he stepped on the field. And it's interesting because in a way, there's like an element of what Penn State wanted its offense to be in Nebraska's offense, where it's able to lean on a very productive running game. They do it with 1 guy instead of 2. Their second most carries goes to
no one else gets the ball.
Technically, the second most carries goes to Dylan Raiola, but that's just because Dylan Raiola was addicted to getting sacked. And I do think that's a very important thing to mention here. Nebraska's offensive line came under a lot of scrutiny for its inability to protect Dylan Raiola. Latif was not touched last week. And I do think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Raiola was always, the Mahomes impression is a thing that we're all very aware of. He tried to do that and it didn't always work. And I think Latif, if you go back and watch, he was a lot more patient, a lot smarter with the decisions that he was going to make, with not always trying to extend plays, with taking what you got, all of that. But Nebraska, they have a dominant running game, their passing game. Nyzet Nizia Hunter's 41 receptions on the year, Ja'Cory Barney Jr. 37, Dane Key 28. Those are their top 3 receivers. Their top tight end, Luke Lindemeyer, is at 26, and Johnson is at 36. They spread the ball out. They get the ball into the hands of their playmakers. They're generally pretty good at making stuff happen when, they're spreading the football out. And I completely agree that I think Penn State starting to blitz more, starting to bring more pressure has been a really fruitful thing for them, a really smart thing for them. And it's going to be a very good thing to do against a young quarterback. I believe they played at the Rose Bowl. So it wouldn't be making they played at the Rose Bowl. So it wouldn't be making his first road start, but like Beaver Stadium at night, if it's rocking, is a very different environment from the Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think that,
and the fans have shown up really well.
Yeah,
ever since the James Franklin departure. You would expect a bit of a lull, but the stadium's been full. It's been very cool.
And I think they're going to try and overload this kid and make his life difficult. The problem is the sheer number of options that Nebraska has to get the football to is going to make for it's going to be a very interesting chess match between Jim Knowles and, do you know who Nebraska's offense coordinator is, Nicholas?
Ooh, that I don't.
I will give you a hint, and the hint is Red Bull.
Red Bull?
Yes.
Oh boy, I don't know.
It is Dana Holgerson.
Oh, I did know that. That's frustrating.
I actually got bored and I went back to look and see if they had ever played against one another. And Jim Knowles in Oklahoma State in his first year there did upset Dana Holgerson's West Virginia team. Oklahoma State's defense wasn't exactly responsible for that win. They allowed 41 points and 553 yards of total offense. So here's hoping Jim Knowles has a slightly better outcome this time. But as you and I both mentioned, Nick, I think a lot of this game is basically just going to come down to, for Penn State, one, what do they make this young quarterback to do? So far in the year, Latif is 29 for 34. That is 85.3%, averaging 13.7 yards per attempt. He's been unbelievable. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Can Penn State be the first defense to really start to speed him up and pressure him? Really good time for Denai Dennis Sutton to be coming off of his best game of the year. And 2, Emmett Johnson, can Amari Campbell, can Dom DeLuca, can Alex Tash and Keon Wiley and DeJuan Lane and whoever they put in to supplement their linebacker room, can they bring him down and not let him turn a 2-yard gain into a much longer gain, which has been an issue for Penn State this year, and it's been a thing that Johnson has been very good at. I think this is a huge, huge test for Penn State's linebacker room, and all eyes are going to be on Campbell, DeLuca, and then whomever joins them in being able to slow him down.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of other guys at that linebacker spot too. We've seen a lot of Alex Tash. We've seen a lot of oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking on his name. The other freshman, Cam Smith. Cam Smith?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cam Smith, Keon Wiley, DeJuan Wayne has been coming down to the box and adding another body down. Like, for one thing that I know a lot of people it was a big criticism of Jim Knowles from Ohio State fans, is that, he's so committed to his principles. He's not always adjusting. He's made a lot of tweaks to the way his defense operates to compensate for the fact that Tony Rojas going down was a really big issue for Penn State's defense.
Yeah. It has been very, very clear and apparent the changes he's made. I mean, we talked about the changes in how much they've been blitzing. So that's been encouraging. We've, like you just mentioned, we heard a lot when Jim Knowles was hired about how it could be fair to expect an adjustment period because he holds to his defensive principles, pretty stoutly, but he has shown real adjustment with this team, and it's something that has really benefited them. It's been fun to watch the defense's evolution over the course of the year. It's one of the few fun things to really come out of this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Nick, any players on offense or defense who you're going to be watching the closest and who you think are going to be particularly important for Penn State being able to defend their home field and walk out of this game with a win?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm watching Katron Allen because I want him to get the record so bad. I think he will. I think, what is he, 147 short? Something like that. Whatever it is, it's a very attainable one-game number based on how he's running the football right now. So I would really like to see him get to cap his Beaver Stadium career off by grabbing that record in front of the home fans. That'd be a lot of fun. He's if Penn State wins this game, he is going to be the primary reason why. He's been playing really well lately. The line has been doing a much better job blocking for him lately. So for me, it's first and foremost, it's Katron Allen.
It's funny you say that. I'm actually going to go with Nick Singleton. Sure. I think that Katron Allen is going to get his, and you should be able to get his. And I think it's going to be a really good opportunity if Allen is able to kind of be the hammer that wears Nebraska's, not particularly great rushing defense down. Nick Singleton is going to have an opportunity to be able to just bring that bit of explosiveness, bring that big play threat that we know he is capable of being at his very best as Penn State's at running back for Penn State. Again, going up against a not especially great rushing defense. He's started to look better in recent games. 71 yards against Indiana, which had that big 59-yard gain, folded into there, 56 yards against Michigan State. Not great, but it is an improvement on what he's done this season. I think this game is an opportunity for him to go out and just get one or two big chunk plays that come as a result of Nebraska's rushing defense that, again, isn't especially great, just being worn down. So I think I'll go him on offense. And then on the defensive side of the football, I think Amari Campbell is going to have a lot to do with how much I expect Nebraska to just try and do the same thing, run the football. I think he is going to have, between that and having to call the defense, get his guys in place, and try and confuse the young quarterback that Nebraska's throwing out there, I think there's going to be a lot on Amari Campbell's plate. And for me, Nick, he's the guy I'm watching on defense. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'll go with Zachy Wheatley. Like I said, I think there's going to be I think the secondary is going to be asked to do a lot on their own in this game, and that kind of the organizing on the back end in that regard is going to come down to Wheatley and his leadership among that group. And his ability to kind of he's going to serve multiple roles in this game. One, we know he's going to come down in the box. He always does. We know he's going to be a big part of stopping the run game and helping to control Johnson. But we know that he is also going to spend a decent amount of time acting as the safety net for the cornerbacks that are on islands. So I think he's going to be asked to really showcase all the things that he can do in this game. Wheatley hasn't, because of just the overall state of Penn State in general right now, Wheatley hasn't really gotten any national praise or acclaim or anything like that on the broader level. But he deserves it. He's had a really great season. He's not Caleb Downs. I think even most people, anyone watching, could tell you that he's not Caleb Downs. But he has done a really nice job of being kind of that key defensive guy on the back end for Jim Knowles' defense. He's someone I think he's going to have a nice career in the NFL. I think he certainly is going to find a spot. And this has been a really great season for him, despite what broken PFF ratings will tell you. He's had a phenomenal season, and I think he's going to be asked to do a lot in this game, and I think he's going to come through.
Because you said it, I am going to. I will say the very obvious thing, which is shout out to Zachy Wheatley's dad, who is a brave soldier in the fight against PFF, alongside both Nick and myself. Moving on to predictions.
Priors only.
That is correct. Moving on to predictions in this one, again, Penn State and Nebraska going head-to-head in Beaver Stadium on Saturday night, 7 p.m. kick on NBC. Penn State 9.5 point favorites. SP Plus has Penn State winning this game 30-23, so a little bit below what Las Vegas thinks. Nick, what do you think? Does 9.5 sound right for you? And do you think Penn State is going to come out on top in their home finale this season?
So I don't think 9.5 is right, because I don't think they're going to keep Nebraska off the scoreboard. Like, I anticipate Nebraska probably getting to at least 17 points. Even as I'm saying that, then I guess it's not unrealistic to say Penn State 28, Nebraska 17. So I guess it would be a good line in that case. But Penn State hasn't scored more than 28 points in a game since UCLA. So I don't feel terribly comfortable predicting them to hit the 30 mark. But as I've been talking for these last 20 seconds or so, I've realized that I think 9.5 is a perfectly reasonable line, because I think 28-17 is a perfectly reasonable score prediction for this game. So that is what I will go with. I'm going to say 28-17. I think Katron Allen gets the record. I think Nick Singleton ties Saquon Barkley's career rushing touchdowns record with 43, I believe, is the number that he'll tie, and he'll have a chance to break that record next week against Rutgers. I think Ethan Grunkemeyer throws for a respectable, 150-ish yards. I think he finds, you know what? Liam Clifford touchdown catch. There's the bold prediction. There's the bold prediction for this one.
It is funny that we're at a point where a Liam Clifford touchdown catch is probably considerably more of an upset than Liam Clifford throwing or running for a touchdown at this point. Liam Clifford doing the Triple Crown and receiving, throwing, and rushing for a touchdown would Penn State fans boo that? Would Penn State fans be upset about that? Because
if he
Penn
does,
State fans got a bit of a thing with Liam Clifford.
If he does the LaDainian Tomlinson, I will issue a public apology to Andy Kotelnicki. That's what I'll do.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that. I think this is going to be a really tight football game. I think Nebraska is a good team, and I think that we've seen them. Have, they're kind of like Penn State in that, like, there's faith and there's confidence in their young quarterback, and he has reciprocated that. I think he's going to be walking into something different than what he is used to and what he has seen. So I think that's a dynamic in here that makes it really tough to know what's going to happen. I'm going to say one of two things are going to happen, Nick. Either one, Penn State wins this game like 27-24, and it's just a very tight, very tough football game. Or two, Nebraska wins this game like 38-10. Like, it's going to be one of these things where either Nebraska just comes out and puts it on Penn State. Penn State's inability to really have much of a threaten the passing game comes back to bite them in this one, and it just turns into Emmett Johnson running a million times and TJ Lateef actually being good. Or what I think is probably going to happen, which is a really tight, really tough, really cagey football game, and I'm willing to bet on Beaver Stadium in a game like that. So I'll say 27-24 Penn State. Hope they win.
I have a really hard time seeing Nebraska run away in that other scenario. Because the only time Penn State's lost by more than a score this year is Ohio State. So I have a tough time seeing Nebraska being the team that's going to break that streak. But Emmett Johnson's very good, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Sure, it'll be I will say, would love it if Grunk has like his big coming out party this weekend. I don't know if he will, but like, if Nebraska's not going to really try to heat him up a ton, I really want to see what Ethan Grunkemeyer can do in what is hopefully his final game in Beaver Stadium for a few months, and he's able to come back and be Penn State's starting quarterback next year. But we'll see.
Do you think the shovel pass to Devontae Ross on the sweep comes in the second quarter or the fourth quarter this week? You know it's coming at some point. You know
it's coming at some point.
It's one of 7 plays that Kotelnicki calls, so you know it's
that is correct. That is correct. Hey, want to talk about what happened at Virginia Tech today?
I think we probably should.
What are your thoughts on all this? Because I have one thought that I did not get a chance to express on the solo show that I think I really need to hammer home.
I mean, when I first loaded up, I was very taken aback because I thought it was just like a normal media press conference. And then he said, I don't remember what he said. And I heard cheering and clapping. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like, is the media room bursting out in applause? Like, I am happy for James Franklin. I think if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you should be ecstatic, over the moon. I don't know how you could possibly imagine a better fit for what you need right now. It's weird seeing him in red. It'll be weird for a second here. I don't know how many timelines you'd have to have run through in early August to find the one where James Franklin is named Virginia Tech head coach on Tuesday, November 18th.
Yeah, let me stop you right there, Nick. One thing that I don't think we've stressed enough is that this is so goddamn weird.
It's very weird.
This is incredibly weird. But there were 44 days that passed between the Nevada game and the day that James Franklin got fired. There were 39 days that passed between James Franklin getting fired and today, the press conference. So he got announced as Virginia Tech's coach sooner, like a week sooner, in a week shorter period of time than the start of this season, that he served as Penn State's coach. Like, it is so goddamn weird. It is weird. Like, you can't say that enough. This was supposed to be the year where Penn State competes for a national championship. And it hasn't ended yet, and James Franklin is coaching another team. John Sauber and Audrey Snyder both had this in stories. He literally did not, the tie and the pocket square that he had today were maroon. Someone at Virginia Tech had to give those to him because his wardrobe is just like all Penn State stuff.
Yeah,
This is weird, man.
At some point, something is going to, like, the rubber. If this year doesn't prove it, nothing will. The rubber is hitting the road as far as the calendar that the NCAA has set up for itself, at least when it comes to football. Because it's just so. Because, like, in any normal year, like, maybe James Franklin gets hired around now. But more likely, this would have waited until at least bowl season. The big advantage to getting him in now is that he can start recruiting, and he can start recruiting guys to stay and not enter the portal and all that stuff. Like, that is the main driver behind all this from Virginia Tech's point of view. And then, because if you're James Franklin, like, in any normal circumstance, considering the chaos that is about to ensue in this coaching carousel, like, obviously you would wait and see what else opens up and see if there's other opportunities you like better. And maybe Virginia Tech is exactly where he wanted to be and he would have chosen them anyway. Maybe, I don't know. But, like, this calendar is just, it's untenable. Like, the fact that Penn State has basically chosen to say, we accept that we might have nobody in our 2026 recruiting class. We accept that we might not be able to be active for more than a week in the portal with a head coach. It's just craziness. And that's not even, and this is for Penn State, a team that is going into this knowing that they need a head coach. This isn't even considering the teams that are going to lose head coaches to other schools at the start of this cycle, and then are going to be looking for head coaches while navigating all that other stuff when they didn't know that they were going to be with that. Like, it is everything about how the NCAA has handled all of this stuff coming together has been so horrific. And the way that they have set all this up, they've set everybody up for failure at this point. If you are not a team retaining its coach, you are set up for failure at this moment. And this year, this offseason is going to shine a light on that greater than anything else. Lane Kiffin might leave Ole Miss while they're in a college football playoff spot. Like that is insane.
I don't think that's going to happen. Like
I
understand it's plausible, but like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think he's going to, but like, if he did, you'd be like, okay, yeah. I mean, he wanted the Florida or LSU or Texas job. Like it wouldn't be crazy. Oh man, what a mess.
Yeah. It's all wild. It was funny watching and listening to a little bit of the press conference and just seeing James hit on a lot of the notes that we're used to seeing him hit on.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had quotes about, alignment and buy-in and needing to be the best and everything, like all that sort of stuff. And it was very interesting watching the response from Virginia Tech fan. And this is one of those things that made me really think like, yeah, things have just ran its course here. Like James saying that stuff here became like adversarial between him and Penn State fans off of him saying Penn State is not serious enough about all of this. And seeing how Virginia Tech fans reacted to that with like, this is great. Finally, someone's getting our act together, or someone's going to step in and finally make us get our act together, really did kind of make me sit there and go like, yeah, you know what? Like it had just gotten to a point at Penn State where him saying that, he could be right, he could be wrong, whatever. It was just not the right thing for Penn State anymore. And you can definitely tell it is the right thing for Virginia Tech. Like it just wild watching the like embrace of that side of James Franklin's personality get like embraced when it was such a point of like contention at Penn State and with Penn State fans and all that. So
yeah. I mean, I sincerely hope that James Franklin does win a national championship at some point. I think he's a great coach, great person. I think he fully deserves it. And I think that the sport deserves, it, especially at a time where it seems that, black head coaches are seemingly disappearing more and more every year. And like the sport needs guys like James Franklin. But at his core, he is a program builder. Like that is his superpower, is building up a program. And that is just not what Penn State needs right now. Penn State needs someone to take the next step. The program is built. That doesn't mean that there's things that the program can't still get to continue building. But for all intents and purposes, the program is built. Now somebody needs to take it to the next level. Virginia Tech needs to be rebuilt. Like they need James Franklin to do his thing. It's a perfect fit. I'm excited to watch Virginia Tech football next year. I hope they do great things.
I wish James Franklin nothing but the best unless he comes up against Penn State in any way, and then I wish him nothing but the worst. But that's also just normally how I go about this stuff. So whatever.
Of course.
Nick, any final things to say before I send the people off into their week?
Does James Franklin try to bring Joe Moorhead to Blacksburg?
God, just knife in my heart, man. Please.
Does he try to correct the thing that maybe ended his tenure at Penn State in choosing Kodal Nicky over Moorhead?
The really funny one is whether he decides he wants to try and make Brent Pry defensive coordinator.
God, I hope so.
I truly have no clue how that would go. I think it would go over well, but like, who knows?
After his tearful kind of thanking and defense of Brent Pry in this press conference, I think it would probably be fine, but it would be fascinating. I would love to see the list of guys that have been fired and then stayed at that school as a coordinator immediately after. It can't be long.
I can't fathom that has happened too terribly often, but we will let James Franklin worry about that. Thank you everyone for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. As always, make sure you go to wherever you go and get your podcast, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Whichever platform that is, though, that always helps. And it's just a nice thing to do. Like we like it when people are nice to us. I think that makes us like most people. Maybe that's like you. And if you are someone who wants to find people who share commonalities with you, subscribe to our podcast. Make sure you're following us over on YouTube for whenever we decide to start posting on YouTube again. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and on Blue Sky. And one last time, thank you to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Head over to homefieldapparel.com and check out everything they have in their collection for you or the Penn State fan in your life. One last time, thank you everyone for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. For Nick Pollock, I'm Bill DeFilippo. Take care, everyone.
Go State.